From London, this is the Standard Podcast, and I'm Mark Blunden.
I cannot tell you what a relief it is to have finally completed my chemotherapy treatment. The last 9 months have been incredibly tough for us as a family.
Coming up in this episode, why Princess Kate's cancer diagnosis openness could give hope to others after the release of a highly personal new publicity video. But first, around 1,700 prisoners were being freed on Tuesday in the first wave of early release to ease the overcrowding crisis in jails, despite new warnings that some are certain to reoffend. Evening Standard Home Affairs editor Martin Bentham reports each of the inmates being released will have served only 40% of the prison term they were handed by the courts to stop jails running out of space for new suspects and convicts. Those convicted of serious sex offences, terrorism, domestic offences and some violent crimes are excluded from the release scheme in an attempt to protect the public. But after earlier warnings from domestic abuse campaigners that some men who pose a threat to women but were jailed for other crimes will still be let out, both the prison and probation watchdogs warned that some of the convicts freed today will reoffend. With the latest, Martin Bentham joins us now.
What is happening today is that around 1,700 prisoners are being released early after 40% of their sentence, basically to free up space in prisons because prisons are more or less full completely across England and Wales. And some prisoners are not being included in this. Those prisoners who have been convicted of serious sex offences, terrorism, domestic abuse offences and some violent crimes are not included in this. But obviously, there are still some people coming out who, for example, domestic abuse charities are concerned because some people who have not been convicted of a domestic abuse offence but have some history of domestic abuse have been convicted of some other offence but still remain a threat to women, for example, will be released today. And more generally, of course, there are some people who, as the Chief Inspector of Prisons admitted today, said some of the people who are coming out, he said, are risky, and by the Prison Service's own definition, a fair proportion will be designated as high risk of harm. It's a term that is used in official circles for designating the threat that people pose, the risk that they pose to the public. So there are clearly some people coming out who will potentially pose a risk of harm to other people, and some people who, again, by the admission of the Chief Inspector of Probation, the Chief Inspector of Prisons, both been talking about this today, and other prison experts, that there will be some people coming out who are likely to reoffend in the time that they're out fairly shortly after their release and have to be taken back into prison. Other people who won't comply with the conditions of the license conditions which are imposed on people when they're released, telling them how they must behave, where they must live and so on. So it's a gamble.
What is the breakdown of the figures?
There's 1,700 around coming out today. On average, about 1,000 people a week are released from prison because obviously lots of people are sentenced to prison. Lots of people come to the end of their term each week. And so plenty of people end up having to be released in general each week. So today you're getting 1,700 more than you normally get in any given week. And those people, of course, are adding pressure to the whole system for probation supervision. The government announced this soon after the general election. Labour announced they're going to have this early release scheme. The previous government, Conservative government, had prepared for it, simply realised that it was going to be necessary because of the prison overcrowding situation. The reason it didn't happen immediately after Labour taking power was simply that probation services and other support services, providing things like housing accommodation, drug support, all these type of things, needed time to prepare. Now, clearly, there's been some time to prepare, but the sheer volume of people coming out and the stretch that these services already face means that what's being provided for the prisoners who are coming out is probably not going to be, in all cases, adequate. And indeed, even under the normal circumstances, around 1 in 7 prisoners comes out and doesn't have really a home to go to. Lots of prisoners come out, don't have work to go to, and already there's a risk of reoffending.
Could you give us some context about how bad the prison's overcrowding crisis has become?
The straightforward facts are the prison population is at 88,521. That leaves only 1,000 places or so available throughout England and Wales, which in effect means there's no real space because obviously you've got to have more space than that to juggle people around, move people around the country, get them into the right prison places. So basically, there was a risk that prisons were going to run out of space for newly convicted people, newly remanded people, if some capacity wasn't released somewhere. Now, the reasons for this are twofold. One is that there have been a number of prison closures of older Victorian prisons, so some spaces have been removed, and prison building, new prison creation. Labour says they want to create 20,000 new prison places to create extra capacity. The previous government had a prison building programme, but hadn't delivered a lot of it.
Let's go to the ads. Coming up, Princess of Wales praised for a video describing her cancer journey after completion of her chemotherapy. Why not hit follow on this podcast in the meantime? Give us a rating. Welcome back. The Princess of Wales has been praised for giving hope to many others, with her heartfelt video explaining her progress in her cancer treatment. Kate used a high-quality short film to announce she had completed her course of chemotherapy.
The cancer journey is complex, scary, and unpredictable for everyone, especially those closest to you. With humility, it also brings you face to face with your own vulnerabilities in a way you've never considered before.
It was shot by filmmaker Will Waugh and includes footage of her family time with her husband and children. The move was praised by cancer charities as giving hope to others, while one PR expert described the release by Kensington Palace as a deeply personal yet controlled publicity move.
This time has above all reminded William and me to reflect and be grateful for the simple yet important things in life, which so many of us often take for granted, of simply loving and being loved.
To discover more about the reaction to the video's release, we're joined by Evening Standard reporter Robert Dex.
We're reporting on the reaction, which is sort of comes from two very different worlds. So lots of people have their say, as they always do on any royal event, but a lot of it is reactions come from cancer charities who obviously are glad that such a prominent figure is speaking so openly about the illness, the condition, and lots of praise for her in that respect, in talking about her treatment and what she does next, and the fact that her treatment is over, but that's not exactly a full stop, that there are going to be other things to come and other challenges to come. There's been that aspect of it. On the other side is the sort of royal PR aspect, which is sort of talking about how she made the statement, why she made the statement, why she made it now, and the differences, if you like, between what she's done and perhaps how previous generations would have done it, or even how she might have done it 5-10 years ago as well.
For those who haven't seen it, what's the content, aesthetic and feel of this video release?
I saw somebody online said it looked like she was just about to release the year's best folk album, which was slightly facetious, but there was a point to it. It's very professionally done. It looks like almost like a music video. Apparently it's filmed in Norfolk, from which the Norfolk Tourist Board give eternal thanks, I'm sure. There's a scene in which she walks through a cornfield with, like stirring music. And she speaks not directly to camera, the sort of a voiceover over lots of sort of scenes of her and the family out and about on the beaches, and that classic royal driving a Land Rover somewhere, that classic royal image. So it's very glossy. It's very well done. It was obviously done over a period of time, so it's been a bit of forward planning has been involved in it. A bit of thought has gone into it. It feels very much like it's done to be clipped on social media. It looks sort of soft focus, and it's a very professional job, as you would expect.
Although I have finished chemotherapy, my path to healing and full recovery is long, and I must continue to take each day as it comes. I am, however, looking forward to being back at work and undertaking a few more public engagements in the coming months when I can.
What do you make of Kensington Palace's PR strategy up until now, releasing so few updates?
I think that's perfectly understandable. I mean, anyone who knows anyone who has been through chemotherapy will tell you that chemotherapy is almost as bad, if not worse, than the illness itself. I imagine if anyone had said to her, do you fancy giving us an update from, the bedside during your treatment, they would have been given fairly short shrift. I mean, the thing with this announcement is that they've learned the one great PR rule, haven't they? That nature abhors a vacuum. And if you don't say anything, other people will say lots of things. So they have put out this statement deliberately. So I think what they've done is balanced her well-being with, the need to say something. And she's only said something when she's ready to say it. And I don't think anyone would criticise them for that.
There's much more news and features in the Evening Standard newspaper and online at standard.co.uk. The Standard podcast is back on Wednesday at 4 p.m.